Hello?
Okay, hi
Hi.
there. This is Data, and welcome to the TNA Post Show. It is Thursday, May 8th, 2025. Tonight, we're going to be talking about TNA Impact, but I'm not alone. Joining me for this review is none other than my co host. Not only is he the fourth rascal, he allegedly has no relation to our still international champion, Steve Maclin. He's the one and only Burt Maclin.
How's it going?
It's going good. We got quite a few things to talk about. So let's kick this off with this PWI report. So Mike Johnson of the PWI Insider reports that TNA officials informed the locker room today that going forth, excessive blood and bleeding will not be permissible by the promotion. The last match for now that will feature any excessive blood from the promotion will be a dog collar match between Steve Maclin and Eric Young. This edit was made official earlier today during a telemeeting. In case of hardway blood or something like a bloody nose or mouth, blood will be allowed. And it's noted that it's understandable that sometimes blood will be a result of contact in the ring, but purposeful heavy bleeding is a thing of the past in the promotion. The decision was made in order to protect the health of talent as well, keeping current and potential advertisers and partners in mind. So, what did you think of this news?
This seems a little different than when it happened in AEW because I believe it was worded, if it would have to be kind of approved.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was only on TV really for the purpose of that noting, but that advertisers this seems a little bit different. It's almost like TNA is kind of preparing to trying to get another TV deal. The way I'm reading that.
Yeah, that's what it seems to me too. But I'm also glad that they're not gonna do it in every match. I don't think every match you need a big blood spot. I think you should save it for like hardcore, like to some other, like Full Metal Mayhem or like the dog collar match, for instance.
Yes.
I think Anthem is trying to find a more family friendly place to impact. Yeah, that seems like it. But overall, anything that protects the talent is always a plus. So
Yeah. Although let me just say I I don't need, you know, R-rated matches every time, blood in every match like you said, but I am definitely more partial to I'm not a fan of the WWE soft style, you know what I mean? Like I don't need it to be family friend. I'm not saying he's unfamily friendly, but at the same time I do like a little bit of a not in every match, but when it calls for it, I definitely don't want it to be tame. Again, I don't need syringes in the mouth or anything that hard. Or again, I've told you I don't. The paper cut is still my to the web of the hands is the worst injury. But yeah, no, if it's a calls for it, I don't want it to. I think every once in a while, blood's fine.
yeah, definitely, I agree. I definitely don't need anybody's tongue to be stapled on a door.
Yeah, exactly. That's a little crazy.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into tonight's show, let's talk about NXT. I know I don't watch NXT, but I heard what happened. Zachary Wentz, Elijah lasted a pretty long time in this battle royal, so very happy to hear that. And apparently, Joe Henry attacked Trick Williams in this. He cost him the battle royal, correct?
Yes.
So obviously, preparing for their match at Battleground, Justice says he almost puked when that tongue spot. Oh yeah, I almost did too. Hi, Terrence. So, what are your thoughts on the Battle Royal?
I actually did not watch anything. I heard the results, but
Mhm.
I'm fine. And TNA getting a lot of shine on NXT, which is it's great. Uh, yeah, and I also think we're setting up because it's going to be it's a Trick versus Ethan versus Joe Henry at Battleground. That's the show.
Mhm.
I actually think that Trick might win that.
Me too. And I will get more into that because he had a segment with a certain someone backstage. So we'll get into that later. What a blood battle. Yup, I agree. It was a great match. It's interesting the TNA World title is defended 2 days after Under Siege. 2 days definitely coming out guns blazing. 8 versus AEW in England. The bull show starts at 8. Yup.
Well, the title's not being defended under siege, so You know what I mean? Like I like the idea of just 2 days later at least having it defended. It's not a TNA show, but again, it's TNA and NXT kind of working together, so that's fine.
Yeah. So, all right. Before we get into tonight's show, I just want to remind everybody, our viewers, that this week's podcast is sponsored by Shroom Bar, the protein mushroom bar. It's made up of not psychedelics, but 4 powerful mushroom adaptogens. It has lion's manes, which increases focus, memory, neuroplasty, making it easier to form new patterns and learn new things. Next time you're trying to learn that move, it will actually stick in your head rather than forgetting immediately. It has cordyceps, which increases VO2 max, blood flow, and overall endurance. It has relish, which has decreased stress. It has turkey tail, which boosts your immune system. We all know y'all need that on those nasty ass gym mats. And on top of that, it has 12 grams of protein. Go to eatmushroombar.com and use code BODYSAM at checkout for 25% off your first order. If anybody ever has mushroom bar, let me know what you guys think.
Yes.
All right, so let's kick things off talking about this dog collar match for the international title of Steve Maclin versus Eric Young. I thought this was a great way to wrap up that little bow on this rivalry with Steve Maclin and Eric Young. They've been going at this since 2024, well, late 2024. And I like this match. I thought it was a great match. Matt Cardona was on commentary. SDL and Vance Warner were watching from the ramp. Ace Austin and Elijah were watching backstage. As we know, one of those four, whoever wins the four-way will face Steve Maclin for that international title. So I think this was a great match and a great way to end the rivalry between Steve Maclin and Eric Young. Now, Steve Maclin can officially move on, and I'm curious to see what happens with Eric Young in the Northern Armory.
Yeah, that it should be Eric Young trying to elevate them. Eric Young at this point doesn't need a title. A secondary one like this one would have been fine, but I'm glad he doesn't get it now. But yeah, it should be about the Northern Armory winning tag titles. Yeah, the feud should be done. If this was the final, match of the SS Blood, I think it was a good send off. Side note, I think it's been a slew of good dog collar matches between TNA and then AEW's had a couple recently with MJF and Punk, and then I believe Brody Lee and Cody had one. You know what I mean? That matches, I don't remember a lot of good ones growing up. But yeah, and also just I'm liking almost the unspoken do-over with the DMC in terms of just they're really booking the international title strong so far. So continue that. Hopefully we get a good feud next for Steve Maclin.
They're doing a better job with the international title than they did ever did with the digital media title. Although I will say I did miss the combat matches. I think those are really fun. The cell phone spots with Matt Cardona and Jordan Grace and Joe Henry flipping off moves with that Sega, unforgettable.
Well, yeah, the matches, there were some good matches in the beginning. It just kind of took it went downhill when PCO got in. But yeah, this is good shit for Steve Maclin right now.
Steve Maclin was a perfect feud to kick off this new title. The excessive blood is on halt for very good reasons. Yeah, understandable. No. So, do you have anything else you want to say about this dog collar match, or do you want to just move on to the beginning of the show?
Yeah. We can move on.
Okay. So tonight's Impact kicked off with Trick Williams cutting a promo, obviously talking about Joe Henry and NXT, and talking about how just Joe Henry wants to become everyone's friend and shake their hands. You know how this goes. Joe Henry comes out, a brawl breaks out, and security, separate them. So obviously they're putting to the TNA Battleground, NXT Battleground, and as you mentioned and I mentioned, I think Trick Williams will make history here. I think he's definitely winning that TNA title, and we'll get more into that because there's a segment that I want to talk about that plays into why I say that. I love this feud. It's balanced on both shows. Ooh. I don't watch NXT, so I can't comment, but that's good. That's good to know.
Trick is. Oh, sorry.
Oh, see, what were your thoughts on this opening segment?
Trick is not only much better as a heel, I think he's much better in TNA. I don't need to explain. I don't think I need to explain further into that. Just because I think people who watch TNA and have watched our show knows that should be a given, just the way TNA books. But yeah, I do think Trick's gonna win, just because. Another side note: I believe I saw the post from WrestleTix recently, and I believe the Slammiversary total so far right now is almost at 3,000 tickets sold, and I think they have the building adjusted for around 4,100, if I remember seeing right. So I think that you need a big time feud for that show, and I think in terms of kind of getting a redo for a TNA wrestler who's actually signed to TNA, getting to win the belt back from, a rival promotion, and then having to do it on a big stage. There's more fans than there was, I believe, when Christian won. I still believe that they were just letting fans in at that point. Yeah, I think they need this. So yeah, I think Trick wins. And again, Joe Henry doesn't need the championship.
You know what? Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's just go ahead and talk about it. This isn't the segment that followed, because after this was a Victoria Crawford segment, but we'll get into that right now. Let's go ahead and talk about this. We had a Mike Santana segment where he was walking and Trick Williams passes by him and they literally stared at each other. And I mentioned this last week, Bert. They could redo the whole Omega Christian Cage Josh Alexander
Yeah.
storyline that they did in 2021. Trick Williams playing the role of Kenny Omega Christian Cage and winning the TNA a world title off with Joe Henry playing the role of Rich Swann, and then you have Mike Santana playing the role of Josh Alexander and bringing the title back to TNA in his home state of New York. I mean, it makes perfect sense. You don't want to put Mike Santana against Joe Henry because the crowd's also going to be behind Joe Henry. You don't want the crowd to be on Joe Henry and Mike Santana, or have a split crowd. You want that entire crowd to be behind Mike Santana. What better way to do that than having him go up against a heel Trick Williams? So
yeah, and again, because I don't see them stretching that feud, Trick Williams versus Joe Henry, out that long. Obviously, they could do that, but at the same time, I think the more appeal, and especially you want to get more fans in that building. And I'm not saying that Joe Henry's interest is peaked, but the more fans you can get, and if they can get more as many fans as they can, then maybe your fans of Trick in that building. That'd be a smart play.
okay,
So I think Trick versus the bigger match.
Nothing against Joe. He has been a great champion. If Trick ain't the first NXT star to win TNA Gold, who will? Will he sell his soul to Robert Stone to get the job done? Interesting question. Trick Joe contract signing this Tuesday. Maybe I'll actually watch NXT. Tune in to find out. Plus, if Bert and my predictions of Santana winning the title at some original choose, he needs to be Trick. That is so true. I did notice Santana Trick stare down. Interesting. Plus, NXT could help promote Slammiversary. Yes, they can. A heel Trick Williams who sells his soul to Robert Stone to beat Joe. I can see that, but I definitely do think that we're going to see a repeat and recycle of that storyline, and I think this time around, it can work really well, especially with the fans and everything. Like, imagine you have Trick Williams take the title that NXT, he defends it NXT. I definitely do see Trick Williams probably having one more match with Joe Henry after he takes the title from him, maybe at Against All Odds, and then before he moves on to Mike Santana.
Trick came off as a bigger star in TNA too. I also think that Trick and Joe are very similar in terms of, and me and Io have actually talked about, not that part, but Joe's more character. I think you could say the same about Trick. And this is just me talking out loud. If Joe ends up going to WWE, I wouldn't mind Trick sticking around in NXT, just because, again, I've kind of alluded to, in TNA, just I think TNA books better, especially with people. I think guys who are and women who are a little, maybe not necessarily green, but in terms of they just haven't got enough ring time. And even though Trick's been world champion twice in NXT, I still think that he can improve a lot more. I think he's better in TNA because he's much better as a heel.
I think he's starting to come into his own as a heel.
Yeah.
But anywho, so that's our prediction, even though Slammiversary is not around the corner, but that's our prediction. We were wrong about Frankie Kazarian, unfortunately, and it's sad. I do feel bad for Frankie because I think he should have won in LA. But I think with the storyline that they're telling with Trick Williams and Joe Henry, I think it works well for Mike Santana. But Trick Williams has to be Joe Henry. Because if it's Joe Henry versus Mike Santana, I don't think
No.
that's not a marquee match. No disrespect to Joe Henry. Everybody knows I believe in 252 pounds of pure motivation. The answer to all life's problems. It's just like I feel like you need a massive match, and a heel Trick Williams versus babyface Mike Santana. That's your main event for Slammiversary.
And yeah, and again, you need the NXT draw, and it obviously could have been Joe and Trick then, or Joe versus somebody from NXT, but also that is Santana's hometown. Not exactly there, but he is from New York, so you're going to get the hometown draw as well. So yeah, as much fans as possible, because that's that building holds more than 4,000. So I'm assuming, if the more the demand goes up, the more seats will open. So
yeah, for sure. All right, Carmelo Hayes looking proud. He probably is. The arm injury might be Henry's downfall too. And yeah, I could see that playing a role. All right, so we had a Victoria Crawford and Robert Stone segment. They're just talking about the dog collar match, how the higher ups are gonna like it, and that he's gonna be out there in her match for her. So this segment really doesn't tell us much or anything besides the fact that Robert Stone's gonna be out there. So
yeah,
we get Rosemary versus Lei Ying Lee. I thought this was a good match. Xia Brookside is on commentary. So obviously they're telling a story Rosemary and Xia Brookside. Rosemary, stopped. I mean, not Rosemary. Xia Brookside stopped Rosemary from winning this match with those brass knuckles. So Lei Ying Lee was victorious. So I still wonder if we're getting a slow burn to like Rosemary corrupting Xia Brookside, because she keeps talking about how she'd rather be like get a clean victory and be honest than do what she has to do to win.
If history's told us, I think it goes that way, even though obviously right now it doesn't seem that way. I think it ends up with her turning heel.
I think so too. All right, so going back to the Mike Santana segment, because more stuff happened. First Class interrupts, and they come to talk to Sami Callihan. I don't know why there was an ogre in this segment, but Casey Navarro makes a reference to Shrek by saying that ogres like onions, which if you've ever seen Shrek, which it's 2025, I don't know who hasn't seen Shrek if you haven't. Shrek says that ogres are like onions, they have layers.
Uh-huh.
When I heard that, I was like, that's a Shrek reference. I'm showing my age, people.
Oh.
And then AJ tells Sami that it's time he flies first class. And he tells Mike Santana that he doesn't have problems, he solves them. So interesting little interaction with first class Mike Santana and Sami Callihan.
Yeah, this is okay. This is fine.
Mm-hmm. So next we get the Elegance brand segment. They're basically giving Maggie Lee a makeover. So I'm very curious to see how her makeover looks. And this trio of Heather, Ash, and Maggie, curious to see what they do.
Yeah. This was another fine segment. This was fun.
Yeah, fun little segment. We get a John Skyler promo, and he's talking about how ever since Rebellion, Mr. Ali has changed and is different, and he wants to apologize to TNA and the fans because they are sorry for what is about to happen next. And this leads to the Greyhounds versus the Aztec Warriors. Let me see. I would be curious to see if they use the Freebird rules and the Elegance brand is out here. Oh, good question.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be. I guess they can. So first off, this match with the Aztec Warriors and the Great Hands, I liked it. I'm happy the Aztec Warriors won, though I do feel bad for the Great Hands. But somebody had to win here, and I'm happy it was the Aztec Warriors just because I feel like Laredo Kid is so underrated and so underutilized. I still feel bad his digital media title reign was so short. But this was a good match. The Aztec Warriors won. And then Mustafa Ali attacked the Aztec Warriors, and the Rascals came to help them. And this led into Mustafa Ali versus Trey Miguel. Before we get into that match, what are your thoughts on the Great Hands versus the Aztec Warriors?
I'd be fine if the Aztec Warriors end up winning the tag team titles. I would like to see that. This was fine. Great Hands, again, they're very underrated, but they had to take the loss here. This was fine.
I agree. You now that the Nemets are the tag team champions and they're a heel team, you definitely want to build up one of the a babyface teams. So the Aztec, we talked about that last time. How many did we say? There were 6 of them. I think you got to either it's going to be the Rascals or the Aztec Warriors, but you
Yeah.
definitely got to build a tag team up to take those titles from
Yeah.
the Nemets. And so Mustafa Ali versus Trey Miguel. I thought this was a fun match. This was a good match. Mustafa Ali won thanks to a distraction from Tasha Steeles and a cheap shot from the Great Hands. But obviously, I think they're gonna slowly have Mustafa Ali rise back to the top because he's definitely gonna feud with Mike Santana once Mike Santana takes that title.
Well, yeah, I like what they're doing because they're just basically saying that he's just more angry because he's pissed off that he lost. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, him having to just destroy everyone to get back to the top is it's fine by me. And just the whole time I was watching this, and I'm glad I get to do the show with you because I get to ask you this because I feel like you are the aficionado on this subject. Mustafa Ali's gear was giving me White Ranger, Green Ranger vibes, Tommy vibe. Is that kind of the silver and white? Was that or whatever? It was very Power Ranger. Am I right?
Yeah, White Ranger.
Okay,
Tiger
yeah,
Zord.
that's what I thought.
Tiger Zord.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Unless you go season 3, then it would be White Ranger power.
Okay. Yeah, I thought of with the shoulder pads and the white and you know what I mean, and the tiger. That's what I was thinking.
I don't know if it really was meant to be the White Power Ranger, or if it was just a coincidence. But either way, I saw what you meant. The color scheme got to me, man. It's been a while.
Yeah,
It's been a while since we've seen a Power Ranger inspired merchandise. Power Rangers inspired attire in pro wrestling. So.
Okay, before we move on, I just want to mention this week's podcast is sponsored by Shroom Bar, the protein mushroom bar. It's made up of not psychedelics, but 4 powerful mushroom adaptogens. It has lion's mane, which increases focus, memory, and neuroplasticity, making it easier to form new patterns and learn new things. That new move, it will actually stick in your head rather than forgetting it immediately. It has cordyceps, which increases VO2 max, blood flow, and overall endurance. It has reishi, which decreases stress. It has turkey tail, which boosts your immune system. And we know you're going to need that when you're on those nasty-ass gym mats. On top of all that is 12 grams of protein. Go to shroombar.com and use code BODYSLAM at checkout for 25% off your first order.
Yes, guys, eat Shroom Bar.
Mm-hmm.
Shroom Bar. All right. Ios says different side of Mustafa could have been dangerous. Yes, he could have. Also, despite our current tag champs, TNA has a good tag team division right now. Of course, the First Lady had to stick her nose in it. Order 4 wasn't going 0-2 for the night. That's true. I do agree with Io. TNA does have a good tag team division, but like we mentioned, they definitely got to build up a face tag team to take those titles off of the Nemets.
And you know what? I like how I said that despite the champs. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of Ryan Nemeth, but he does enough to fit the gimmick of, the old gimmick of obviously one person's carrying him. He's the mouth. You know what I mean? We've seen teams like this. So, again, I don't think they're going to be champs for long. But, yeah, I definitely agree with him. The division is stronger than the champs.
I'll get more into Ryan Nemeth when we get into the segment. But we had a Steve Maclin promo. And this is just your typical Steve Maclin promo. He's talking about how his feud with Eric Young has been, been going at this for 7 months, and that he's going to finish this once and for all. And of course, tag him, bag him, mayhem for the Northern Armory. So this was good. Just your typical Steve Maclin promo.
Yeah.
Next, we get the Hardys promo, and they're basically, apologizing to the fans because of Rebellion. They lost the tag titles. They feel they let them down. And they vowed to fight, scratch, and claw their way back to the tag titles. They're interrupted by the Nemets. And, like you said, Ryan Nemeth he plays the role of annoying so good. Like, he's like, my brother.
He's definitely the Enzo of the group. He's going to run his mouth. Nick's got to go out there and handle it. Kind of like the cartoon of the small dog barking around the big dog. The dynamic is fine.
So Nick says that he'll give the Hardys a rematch at Under Siege, but they bring up the fact that Jeff Hardy cannot cross into Canada because of his past issues, which we're not going to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So So Ryan never tries to cancel the match. Santino Morella says that next week it's going to be Jeff Hardy versus Nick one-on-one. And at Under Siege, it's going to be the Nemitz versus Matt and a partner of his choosing. So I question, who is Matt Hardy going to choose? Are we going to see a possible debut? A returning wrestler? Who do you think it is against the Nemitz?
Safe bet I could see maybe Leon Slater and Jeff Hardy makeup. You know what I mean? He's friends with the Hardys. You know what I mean? He talks about all the time how he kind of like grew up watching the Hardys, looks up to the Hardys. But I can't think of I did see the people who are officially off their contracts. None of the names really stand out to me that would make a debut. So I don't think it's going to be a debut. That's just my opinion.
I think you're right. I think it's more than likely going to be Leon Slater more than anything because he's been teaming with them for a couple weeks. So I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
All right. So Joseph says, "LL, Ryan is such a pain in the ass, but he's a lovable one that I don't mind him as a heel. I was wondering how they would write off Jeff since he can't go to Canada given his pass. This was simple. Yes, this was much better than a beatdown. Leon is a safe choice. I would have said maybe an NXT star. Yeah, I think Leon is the safest bet." So next week, you have Victoria Crawford versus Brittnie Brooks. Victoria Crawford making her TNA in-ring debut. Brittnie Brooks being Chris Bay's girlfriend. This was mostly about Victoria Crawford. I think she did a good job. I don't think she's missed a beat since this is her first wrestling match in a couple years, right?
I think she's been on the indies recently, but yeah.
She hasn't missed a beat. She was really good. Really good. I hope she stays and signs with TNA. But Victoria Crawford was victorious. Robertson was on commentary. Obviously, Victoria Crawford was going to win this. There was no way she was losing. And then Masha comes out and attacks her. Tessa attacks her, hits her with the buzzsaw. Santino Morella comes out, calls her crawfish. It makes a tag team match. Tessa and Victoria Crawford versus Masha and a partner of her choosing. However, Robert Stone says that because Matt Hardy already has that, he handpicks NXT Lakita Lyons to be Masha's partner next week. And let me see. Give me 1 second. Go on.
I don't know how Santino doing that, picking Nikita Lyons, I'm almost kind of siding with Robert Stone and saying, yeah, now Santino's got heat with me. On one hand, I'm always the person that's going to let it play out. But when I heard that, I'm like, really? Nikita Lyons? Like, I look down the roster of, again, why couldn't it have been Jordan? Jordan's part of NXT. It would have made sense. She's recently from TNA. She's a TNA legend. But for it to be Nikita, I did not. That just makes no sense to me. And just his reasonings that he's already doing the surprise opponent for Matt next week. Yeah, I didn't get this. But again, let it play out. It's fine with me. But I wouldn't say that they ever are going to book a segment on purpose to piss me off. But you have Tessa, who you know how I feel, and then you throw that in with Nikita. This segment was definitely a little infuriating.
Hold on.
But like I said, I have faith in TNA. We're going to let it play out.
Yeah, I have to agree. This segment did not make sense to me because you have Ariana Grace and Robert Stone backstage, kind of like arguing that she's an NXT liaison, and then you got Tessa getting involved in this. So it's kind of like, yeah, this was just all over the place, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So I still wonder if we're getting a Tessa Blanchard and Ariana Grace feud because they seem to have a couple moments together where, like, okay, it seems like we might get
Yeah.
match between them, right?
Yeah. I could see that.
Okay, so Joseph says Nikita needs to rep. She's been demoted to Evolve. So Victoria Crawford is just like this probably 6 month deal at best, or until the storyline is all over. She's not here for a year or 2 years. It's a mess. I'm wondering if Tessa will challenge the winner of Stephanie Vakia versus Jordan Grace. I could definitely see that happening, honestly.
People have talked about Tessa appearing in NXT. I don't think that happens anytime soon. But again, I have no information to back that up, or it's like I have sources or anything like that. But I just think that issue is still a little too hot at this point. I don't think that you want that on TV. The chance it could erupt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It says Robert Stone picked Nikita, Santana wanted Masha to pick her partner. Yeah. So we got to wait and see what the storyline is going. I'm not a huge fan with the storyline, so I don't really know where to go from here. But I guess we just got to wait and see where they do.
Mm-hmm.
This Anthony says, I have no problem with the Power Circle storyline. She was not my first choice or either of the choices. I had Sonya Deville, Maria Samurai were my three. Oh, okay. Okay, makes sense, I guess. All right, Bert, as we get ready to sign off, is there anything else you want to say?
No, again, like I said, while I'm not a fan of everything, I'm a fan of TNA, and of course I'm going to pay attention. So, yeah, let's let it play out.
Yeah, I also honestly, this feels like Tessa slowly getting back in the title picture. But could be. But for all, I think that was it. I think overall this was a decent show as we continued to build to Under Siege. So, all right, Bert, where can people find you?
Just on Twitter at BertMaclin11.
This was better than last week's episode. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It was better than last week's episode. All right, you can follow me on Twitter at @Tesla_. I talk all things wrestling, WWE, Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, occasionally AEW Dynamite, and of course TNA Wrestling. I go live on my YouTube channel, Rangers of Wrestling, every Monday, occasionally Wednesdays, Fridays, occasional Saturdays and Sundays, and of course for all things TNA, you can catch me here on Body Slam every Thursday. With that being said, thank you guys all so much for watching. If you continue support, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever we go live, whenever Body Slam goes live, and we'll catch you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.